Welcome to the Tools for the Modern Man podcast. I'm your host, Pete Beskis, and today I really want to talk to everybody about a concept I came up with in college and university, which was kind of along the lines of the 80-20 rule, but it was more like the B effort, B result. And I used to call it the golden intersect, which is where I intersect effort with result. Like, where do I get the biggest bang for my buck? And I really use this all the time. And I notice that when I'm doing my best work, I'm operating under this premise, right? And I've never claimed to be a perfectionist. I've never claimed to be an A student or someone who needed to get all the 4.0s. I have friends who are like that, and that's their thing. Mine was always about trying to maximize my effort or minimize my effort and maximize my result. And I call that kind of B average work, right? And I've found with B average work is that I can get things done so much faster. And for the most part, it serves me really, really, really well. There's only really one downside to it is that sometimes you make mistakes and you have to be okay with that. And, you have to be okay that you're probably going to go back some small percentage of time and have to redo something or accept failure or accept a negative result because somebody's highlighted an error in your work. And because I'm not a surgeon, because my work doesn't really, my work can be corrected and can be iterated over and over again. I don't feel it's a bad thing. And I think for 95%, maybe even 99% of people out there, your work can be average. B average, not C, not D, not like just getting by, because that's usually not the effort you're looking for, but a good quality result where you can maximize the output, but minimizing the effort. What I find has been really reassuring about that is, you can get started on stuff. Like, I'm never afraid to get started. I might have a history of not being a great closer, not finishing things or seeing things through the finish line, but I'm definitely a great starter. I, rarely have motivation not to get started. It's just, and because I think it revolves around that concept of I'm good at doing a certain amount and then it's good enough. If and any of you guys who've known me for a long time know that there's good enough. Good enough is good enough for a lot of things. For most of the things we do in our life, cleaning up, good enough. Like, how much do you want to do? Do you really want to get the corners? Great, you go do that. I'm not that person, right? When I'm doing this podcast, sometimes it's just good enough to get the podcast done, to create consistency. Because it is consistency that wins out over time. I've been doing this health and fitness kind of challenge since the beginning of the year, and it's now May. So we're well into 5 months. And during that challenge, there are these certain metrics. And this is where I saw my B effort, my B result, my B work, B average work coming through, was as I was doing this challenge. And, end of December last year, embarrassed to say, I clocked in at 220 pounds. And I was like, no, my knees are hurting me. I'm not feeling good. Like, something's got to change. I've got to implement some change. And so, I took the time off at Christmas time, reevaluated a bunch of stuff, and started to look at what I wanted to do. And there were some big changes I had to implement. And basically some big intimidating challenges. But then there was the kind of health, diet, fitness type of stuff that I think everybody looks at the beginning of the year. Now, I was looking at it and I approached it a little bit differently. My wife always says this. She's like, you just have to keep going. You just have to keep doing it. It doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be getting going. And, if you've read Atomic Habits, it's about 1% improvement every day. The concept that consistency is what wins out over time. These are lessons that I've learned from multiple different mentors and influencers. One of them being my friend and coach, who is a fitness coach for men over 40. And he, and whenever I talk with Craig there, he always says, it's not about the best days, it's about how bad are the worst days and can you improve those worst days. And it kind of goes to that B average work. I don't want to get D's and I don't want to get F's. I can handle a couple of C's, but I want most of my work to be at that B grade level. I want it to be at B or above, or and every once in a while dip into the C. How that translated to my fitness journey and my diet journey was, I had a list from this coach, and it was all of these, this is these macros you got to hit. Here are your calories. Here's your water. Here are your proteins. Here's your exercise. Here are your metrics. And he kept drilling at me to be 100%. Like, you got to make these. Get me 48 out of 52 days, and you're going to see massive change. And I'm like, great. But is it sustainable? And that's a question I always ask too in my head is it sustainable? If you would take my B average work, what if I only made it to 80% of those targets every day? Now, I'm going to try to go for the 100, right? I do want to have a few days where I'm stretching myself and I'm getting to the 100 because I want to learn, is that sustainable? Is that something I can do over time? And as I got into the first month, the first few weeks trying this thing out, I didn't put a lot of pressure on myself to hit 100 every day. I wanted to see what kind of habits I could form, what kind of levels I could achieve, and then build upon those every week. So a lot of people I saw came out of the gates hard, banging, hitting all these targets, working out like crazy, going 100%. And then by about week 3, which is like the quitter's week, a lot of people started dropping off. And I actually started improving over time. So I kept going even when the challenge was done. And I just kept going. And yeah, I saw a little fall off, after about 3 months. But then I kept moving back up, reinitiated with the challenge, went forward. So I have this coach in my ear who keeps yelling at me to get to 100%. And I'm managing my own self at B average work. So I look back at the 3-month period, and lo and behold, I'm about 80%. I'm at that B average component of hitting these targets. And what were my results? What have been my results? Well, first and foremost, in 3 months, I dropped over 15 pounds consistently, slow, steady, easy. And it reflected in how I was wearing clothes, my fit, like the way I was feeling. I was feeling energized. I had more mental bandwidth to handle more things. And I was taking on more stuff. And with each one of those other stuff that I was taking on, again, not trying to create perfection, not trying to go for the A, but just trying to be consistent at that 80% effort, at that B average effort, right? And you can get a lot done when you're executing at a B average level. You're not that Pareto's principle of 80-20. Well, 80% of the work is going to get you, 20% of the work is going to get you 80% of your results. So I found that if I tried to get to the A, it better be exceptionally important. It better be extremely important. This better be make or break kind of effort to get me to achieve an A. But if I'm trying to do everything in my life at an A, then nothing's going to get done at an A. And that is really the lesson I've learned over time, is that I can operate and I am sustainable at B average work. And the product is good. Nobody really can tell the difference between that B and that A. Goes back to this joke I heard years ago that, what do you call it? Somebody in medical school who gets a C. And, the answer is a doctor, because that's what they needed to pass. And the same thing with engineers. And when I went through engineering, you had all these A students, you had these B students, and then you had the C students. And 25 years later, nobody can differentiate the three, right? No one can really. Once they got a degree, once they started going out and working, once they started to implement stuff, everybody took their own path, but you really can't differentiate and look at these like career people and say, oh, that's the A student, that's the B student, that's the C student, right? What the lesson learned from that is they were showing up consistently over time and generating, at a minimum, good work, which is B average work. So that's what I kind of wanted to get off my chest today. Really, it goes into that whole, I can add a little bit more, which is why does it matter? Well, it takes stress away. It takes stress away from me when I can just focus on B average work. It'll take stress away from you when you're trying to achieve B average work. The stress, the killer, is when you're trying to squeeze out that last little bit, that B to A to 20%. You're going to kill yourself to get there. And what is it really accomplishing you? So be choosy, be picky on what you try to get an A on, and don't try to be a straight A student. Don't try to be that 4.0. You know, it's not going to benefit you in the long run. So that's what I have today. I really hope that you guys got a little nugget out of it. This is short and sweet, but I wanted to get it off my chest. It's the B average work, you know, basically the Pareto's principle of 80-20, the golden intersect of effort to output. And I hope you guys try to look at some of the things you're doing right now going into the next week, apply this principle, and tell me what you think. I'd love to hear from you. And if that's it, everyone have a great week, and I will talk to y'all next time.